Hello and welcome back to the channel, guys, and to a very happy Casa de EVM. Well, when I say very happy, they couldn't really give two flying hoots about what we've just done, but I'm very happy because I have something to tinker with, something to obsess over, something to make more efficient, and something that will spew data out for me to pore over in a very much geek fashion. And as you can probably tell from this kind of void of paint here, that's in a gas boiler shape, we've got rid of our gas boiler in favour of a heat pump. That did our central heating and our hot water, so the heat pump will of course be doing the same thing. Now there is a ton, and I do mean a ton, of misinformation out there when it comes to heat pumps. Some are just exaggerations, but some are just bold-faced lies. When you put something like the ugly truth next to a video, it typically does really well, which is kind of why I've clickbaited this title a little bit, so apologies for that, but it's kind of a bit of a dig at stuff like this. Heat pumps, the ugly truth. Essentially what happens with stuff like this is the installer, that person, puts the heat pump in incorrectly, the customer doesn't like it, and then they rip it out again and blame the heat pump rather than the person that's installed it. So in this video, I'm just going to give you a brief overview of what we've actually got, which heat pump. There's a tower over there with the water tank in it. Give you a very brief overview over what we've done in the house in terms of retrofitting it, because we've kept the radiators, there's no underfloor heating or anything like that. They're not for everybody. That's the first thing. Everybody is different. We've got a 15-year-old house-ish, and it's relatively efficient. It's as efficient as I can make it without going to triple glazing anyway. So we're suited for a heat pump. It doesn't mean that you're not, or that it's going to cost you a fortune to adapt your house for one. So let me show you around, and whilst I'm doing that, hopefully dispel some of these myths. I've tried to do it without a hat. It's just way too sunny, way too hot, and I'm afraid the Goodwood hat is staying. This is a 5 kilowatt Aerotherm Plus, a baby heat pump according to their entire range, and this is more than enough for this entire house. It will do all the hot water, it will do all the radiators and the heating, and yes, including in winter as well. That's something that I want to get rid of immediately, that heat pumps cannot heat houses up in winter. I mean, forgetting the fact that Norway is predominantly heated by heat pumps, and they get, what, minus 20, 30, 40 degrees centigrade. It shouldn't exist, should that? But it does. A lot of people out there think it will not generate enough heat. Now, if you put a too small heat pump in a house, if it's not sized correctly, you may end up with that. So it's all down to the installer. I've said this time and time again, and the planning of this house and the heat pump is all in a previous video, so go and have a look at that. The first thing that I would like to put out there and dispel a few myths of is that this is, as I said, the Valent Aerotherm Plus. It's one of the next-gen heat pumps, if you will. It's a step up in terms of efficiency, in terms of quietness, just in terms of technology. Gas boilers have pretty much hit their peak in terms of efficiency. They've still got a bit to go, so they're getting better and better. I've been contacted by quite a few people who said, oh, I've had a heat pump for 5 or 6 years, it's loud and it's not as efficient as you think yours will be. This isn't the same thing. There is a step change. It's like comparing a 10-year-old electric car versus a new one. They're just not the same or comparable. So just keep that in mind when you're looking into a heat pump. Don't go off what people are saying from 5 years ago, 10 years ago certainly, because stuff has gone on since, quite a lot in fact. Now, as I said earlier, this is the 5 kilowatt heat pump. And something else I'd like to get out there is that that's not how much energy it will take in. It is not going to use 5 kilowatts of electricity to heat my house. The most this will use, according to the book, is about 2.5 kilowatts. Now that 2.5 kilowatts is, of course, when it's running inefficiently, probably doing the hot water in the middle of winter. Hopefully, if we've tweaked it enough and get it just right, given the floor temperature we've gone at, which is 40 degrees centigrade, for the radiators I should point out, then it should run far more efficiently. And we will genuinely, for the hot water, not so much, thank you, but for the heating, get over 400% efficiency. That's what we're aiming for, but only time will tell. So obviously there's going to be follow-up videos for this in terms of the data and stuff it spews out. I do have some data to give you regarding the hot water, and for that I need to go on the other side of this wall and show you the second part to this entire installation. But ultimately, when it comes to heat pumps, yes, it will always heat your house up. Yes, if it's sized correctly, it will heat almost any house up. But how efficiently is the only real question here, and that depends on your house. This is perfect for us. It's a small heat pump because we've got an efficient house in terms of heat loss. I will also do a noise comparison in a few minutes so you can see, or rather hear, how quiet this is. I mean, even the Valent engineer that came out to check a few things, even he said it's 2/3 quieter than the previous generation stuff. And again, don't look at the past to predict the future. So I'll do that in a second, but first let me show you the tower inside, because that I think is fantastic. The regular viewer will probably think that, wait a minute, the battery used to be here, and you were right. It's now over there. It's painted black to make it look cooler, even though no one's ever going to look at it. But it's this I wanted to show you. This is the Valent Uni Tower, and it's designed to operate beautifully with the Valent heat pump. It's almost a plug and play option. This will save more in labour costs because it's all here than getting the separate units. Even though it's more expensive than a traditional cylinder, for example, it does more than that. It's got all sorts of cool things in there I don't understand. Hydraulic stuff, expansion vessels, the 190 litre water tank, immersion heater, it's all here in nice one neat package. It's very difficult to install incorrectly. There's only really 2 pipes that's going into it. And I like that. I like the fact that it's so easy to install. The installation engineers went, oh yeah, that's definitely way better. And it saves a lot on time and therefore money. It's also designed to operate with that heat pump, as I said earlier. So there's good efficiency there, good synergy. I like to keep things kind of connected. And that's what this does. It talks to the heat pump and it figures it out all for itself. So let me tell you about the hot water. Again, something which a lot of people say the heat pump, or a heat pump should I say, not just this one, oh, that can't do it very well, it won't heat it hot enough. That heat pump, if I set it to, can run at a flow rate of 75 degrees centigrade. 75! Who needs that with hot water or heating? You don't. Even a gas boiler shouldn't be set that high. I had my gas boiler set at 50 degrees centigrade for the heating, and I can't remember what the water was, but this, I've set it after a bit of tweaking at night to 51 degrees centigrade, the water inside the tank I mean. And that's because I've used the 4-hour cheap period I've got on my tariff. So for 4 hours, it's at today's prices anyway, 7.5 pence per kilowatt hour. And for the other 20 hours, it's 38 pence per kilowatt hour. Remember, we haven't got to October's price cap or anything yet. So as it stands right now, it's substantially cheaper for me to use that 4-hour window, which is what I do for my electric car. That's when it always charges. And I'm using the same methodology with the hot water in the tank. I'm heating it up, I'm charging it up during the 4-hour period, and that's it. It doesn't get touched unless I override it, and I can do. It doesn't get touched until the following night. And yes, we can have a couple of showers and even a full bath. And even by 7, 8 o'clock in the evening, so we're talking, what, 15, 16 hours later after I've heated it up, it's still nice and hot. It's probably dropped about 6, 7 degrees. I can just run the hot tap in the bath with no cold water tap running, and it's just perfect temperature, which for me is lava spec. I do like a hot bath. It never really occurred to me before, but running the hot tap in your bath and then having to put cold in because the hot water's too warm, that's very inefficient. That means you're heating your water up way more than you need to. So with a bit of tweaking, like I said, this is running at 51 degrees centigrade at night. And before anybody asks, yes, it's got the Legionella cycle, which it does once a week. I can do it every day if I want, and that does that cycle. So that takes care of that. You can control it as much as you like. So that means that, and I will go through this in future videos more in more detail, in actual facts and figures. But over the last week, because I've only had it installed like a week and a half, we have successfully done that each day. It's been no problems, and it seems to be using about 5 kilowatt hours worth of energy to heat the entire tank. That's if I empty it, of course. If I have, if we have a couple of showers and a bath, if it's empty, that's how much it seems to use in terms of electricity to heat the tank up again. Most days where we've just had showers, which is more common, then it's only eating about a third or a half of the tank. So it's very rare that it's going to be heating up the entire tank from scratch. But 5 kilowatt hours at 7.5p, well, that's cheaper than gas. In fact, gas at the moment is more. So given the efficiency of the on-demand boiler we had, I'm actually saving money at the moment on the time of day tariff with the heat pump. So you can see why I've gone down that line. And yes, for me, time of day tariffs are not going anywhere for a long, long time, if ever. They started in 1976 with Economy 7, and although the gaps may lower, they may get closer, they're not going anywhere, and I've talked about this in the past. You cannot get a time of day tariff like the one I have without an electric vehicle though. So I'm not suggesting that everyone can go out and do this, I'm just telling you what we've done. With the battery there, that can charge up with, at the moment, lots of sun, or in winter, the cheap nighttime period, and then that can power the heat pump, maybe not the entire day in winter, but it can power the heat pump and again take advantage of that cheap nighttime rate. Time will tell. We haven't got to winter, we haven't used the heating yet, obviously, because it's red hot outside, and we've only used the hot water. So I may be wrong. I may have got the figures slightly off, bang on, who knows? Once we get to winter, I will obviously do follow-up videos and see if I was correct. Has it worked? But I haven't just installed this heat pump purely to try and save money, because quite frankly, the installation costs wouldn't meet any potential savings. We've done it to get rid of gas. It's a bit of a conscious decision from an environmental point of view. It's a bit of a conscious decision for me because it can generate a lot of content on the channel, and anything that generates content can effectively earn me money because I get, a bit of monetization from YouTube. A heat pump will heat even a thatched cottage up if you wanted it to. It won't run at its most efficient, but it will do it. I have to show you this though. This is my favourite thing of this uni tower. If I open this here, you can, look at the various settings and, press buttons that I don't know what to do. I don't really go into it much, but check this out. I close the door, and if I want, I can open it from the other side. Or I could do that and open it from there again. It's like magic, it's witchcraft. Simple things there. So right, yeah, that's it. Heat pump, tower. That's all there is. Obviously there's lots of pipes all over the place, and it's just connected to our existing central heating system, which is all the same radiators bar 5. So out of the 13 radiators we've got, 5 were changed. If you want to know more about that, watch this video, which I've done previously, about the planning that has gone behind this heat pump. So I don't want to kind of go over it again in this video, but essentially, yes, we've had 5 radiators changed, and that's not the width, it's just taking them off, putting them back on again, that are thicker, deeper radiators. So there's been no repiping needed at all. However, if you did watch that previous video, you'll remember that on the top floor, because this is a 3-storey house with the garages underneath, but on the top floor, we did have the 10mm microbore stuff, the awful stuff, which we wanted to expand into the 15mm stuff, so we can get a better flow rate and it's more efficient essentially. On that, we did expect a bit of retrofit cost. On the first floor, it was all 15mm pipes like this. On the top floor, as I said, it was all the 10mm stuff. And we thought, right, well, we're going to have to repipe this entire top floor, and we accounted for that, we budgeted for it. However, in a very strange quirk of whoever built this house, it appears that we had 15mm pipe throughout the entire house, but from just underneath the flooring in each of the the bedrooms essentially and the bathroom, they used 10mm. So instead of having to repipe the entire top floor, we only had to go from essentially the radiator to just underneath the floor, which obviously saved us probably a day or two's labour as well. So we were lucky on that respect. I'm not saying you will be as well. If you've got microbore, you can absolutely get a heat pump and stick with the 10mm stuff. Go and visit the Heat Geek channel though, because I have no idea what you need to do if that's your situation, but you can have 10mm pipes with a heat pump. It might not run as efficiently as it can, but it is doable. So the retrofit of this house was essentially just changing 5 radiators and the pipe, a foot of pipe in 4 or 5 rooms. Okay, I have my hat, my microphone, so I can show you how quiet this thing is. I even have a cat who couldn't care less that thing's spinning, because again it's so quiet. You can see the windsock sort of moving there, it is spinning. I'm not sure if you can make it out on camera, it's just not making any noise whatsoever. And I can turn the fan up, fan down, makes very little difference. The only noise is from the wind coming out of it like a fan. So compared to up there, where we are in the bedroom, there's nothing, there's absolutely no noise. The ambient noise of just nature is far louder, and as I said, you couldn't care less, could you? No. So what essentially have I learnt from this entire process? The research beforehand for a good year and a half, and the installation and how it's gone so far. Well, pretty much, yes, heat pumps are expensive to install. That's the first thing. Are they more expensive than a gas central heating boiler, a on-demand one that's typical in the UK? Absolutely. But like everything, it's not as simple as that. I mean, we had a near 15-year-old gas boiler. It was getting to that point when it needed replacing. So if we were ever going to do this, if we were ever going to electrify our heating, it made sense to do it now. There was no point in buying a new gas boiler to then replace it in 2, 3, 4, 5 years time. That would have been a complete waste of a gas boiler and installation and cost and various other things. So we took advantage of that, or rather we were forced down a route that made sense to do it now. But there's also a few other factors which I think need mentioning. Has it cost us more money up front? Again, yes, absolutely. There's the bus grant, the boiler upgrade scheme, which I'm not going to get into politics or the whys, the wheres, but that's a £5,000 grant that can help if you're looking at a heat pump. I've also contacted 3 different estate agents in our local area, asked them, and they said that yes, we have just added a little bit of money onto our house in terms of percentage because we have a heat pump, and that's becoming a more wanted thing, like solar panels. A lot of people are going after them now when they're changing houses, or rather it's a bonus, it's worth something to people. So just with that alone, and I'm using advanced man maths here, believe me, I really am. I'm not saying do it because it makes your house worth more, but in our case, that alone has pretty much paid for this. Factor in the potential to have cheaper fuel bills with the solar panels we have, with the home battery we have, and hopefully a continued time of use tariff. But that's how we've managed to do this. We had to do something, so we thought, let's do this now, let's bite the bullet. It's a bit earlier than we thought, but let's get it done. So what I would take from this is that once you've got a decent quote from a good installer, and that's key, one that has done a proper heat loss calculations. A salesman cannot give you a quote for a heat pump. He will just sell you anything and it'll be a bad install. It will either cost you a fortune or it won't heat the house up properly, depending on whether they put a too small heat pump or a too big heat pump in. Will it heat your house up? Of course it will. Will it heat the hot water up? Again, of course it will. The technology is fine, it's improving as well, and the state we're at the moment is quite a bit better than it was just a few years ago. So although do listen to previous people, previous installs and their experience, just remember that whatever you get today will be better. A cheap one today will be better than a probably more expensive one 5 years ago. And I appreciate the irony of someone on social media telling you not to pay attention to social media. If anybody says it doesn't work, I can tell you now, don't listen to them. That's not because I'm an expert, but it's because a lot of people it will work, some people it won't work, so therefore a broad kind of spectrum statement of saying it doesn't work, heat pumps don't work, it's wrong. It's clickbait, it's Daily Mail level sort of journalism, if you will, and I use that term loosely. The only correct thing I've come to realise is true when it comes to this sort of heating system is everybody's different. The answer is it depends. Look out for future videos that clearly will be about the heat pump in terms of the data, especially in winter, and the house as a whole, because we've had this master plan since we moved in here 8 years ago, and it's almost complete. We have the solar panels, we have the home battery system, we've got the heat pump now, we're almost ready to get rid of gas, so that gets rid of that standing charge, which is like £100 and odd a year now, and well, let's see what happens. As I've said in previous videos, this is following our journey. I am not trying to persuade you or to preach to you to be environmental or to do X, Y and Z because it's the right thing to do. Is it right for you? That's the only thing you need to ask yourself. If the question is yes, then look at the experiences people like myself have had and learn from that. Look at the negatives and the positives, all of it, as I said earlier. I'll see you soon.